on this episode of Southern Fried Geekery.
No, I did not say I was DTF. Neither am I PB. So, that's right, I brought it up before you guys could.
1, 2, 3.
Jerry just got attacked by a cat.
Sorry, my thoughts were a little incoherent because of it was the late change up. But
God, no, dude, that was fine.
Notes were and stuff. So
I think it's going to sound wonderful, but I'm also rainbows and fluffy clouds. I'm a happy person. I am a happy person. Fuck you.
Hashtag homo gay.
Anyway, welcome to episode 8 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. All of you who are out there joining us, who have made it this far, we really appreciate your time. We really appreciate you tuning in to listen to us talk about some stuff that we love. If you've liked what you heard, and we really hope you have, as always, we encourage you to go on iTunes, on Libsyn, on Google Play, SoundCloud, all these places where you might have found us, and to rate and review us. Leave a couple stars. Let us know what we're doing right. It helps boost us. It helps people find us. It also lets us be able to kind of work with what we have, know what we're doing right, know what we're doing wrong, figure out where we need to go with this thing that we call the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. As always, I'm Caleb.
I'm Craig.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Jerry.
Is this going to be a thing?
I heard that you guys had a shortage of salt and sass, so I've come down from my great Mount Olympus to fill your metaphorical wells.
We're now looking for a new fourth tier.
Jerry just used up all the time he was allotted for the show.
Hey, I just want to point out that I was not the one who did show tunes first on the Southern Fried Geekery.
Amen.
And that is probably the most coherent thing you'll hear from me this episode.
Well, guys, like I said, reach out to us, rate and review us so we know what we're doing right. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram, where we are talking about and posting the things that we love. At SFG Podcast. You can search for us, jump in, friend us, like or whatever you call it on those platforms, and we'll carry this conversation over to other platforms. You can also email us, southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. Had to think about that for a second.
And soon we'll have a Facebook page and maybe Vero if that thing actually takes off.
I still haven't figured out what the fuck this Vero thing is.
It's like Instagram.
Yeah,
but I have Instagram.
I know.
I'm too fucking old and busy to learn new platforms, guys.
Listen, I'll always wait at least a month before signing up for a new social media platform, just in case they're trying to steal all of your information and identity and everything like that.
That's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. While we're on the topic of things that we have done or things that we are doing, if you have not yet, you should really go listen to our Black Panther special that we did. We sat down with some dear friends and we talked about what it meant to see the Black Panther. These were all people of color. What it meant to see a black film with a black cast directed by black people that spoke to the black community and spoke to the community at large. Really great interviews. It was a really good time. We feel like it's a really important thing and we're all very proud of it. Please go give that a listen. But today, we're going to talk about some comics.
We are.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
And this is kind of Jerry's first real episode as a member of the full cast.
So he gets to give the first shout out.
He does get to give the first shout out. So we're going to let him go.
Well, dang, I was really building up and hoping that you would wait and do me a last.
Roger signed a waiver.
Get your hand off my knee, Caleb. Actually, my shout out was going to be to you guys. Don't look at me like that. I actually
I'm a little teary-eyed.
Don't cry either. You're gonna make it really weird. I actually finally got a chance to start listening to the podcast. Got caught up in like a day. Almost.
Yeah, you powered through that thing.
Yeah, really shows like all the work that you guys have put into it and how you've kind of really connected this thing together. I just thank you guys. Thank friends in general. It's
So you're saying you liked it before you came on the show?
Been a pleasure. Yeah. Well, one of my things about it is I really felt like I needed a reward for listening to you guys while I'm at work, even though I listen to you every day anyway, almost.
Your reward is that we didn't call your boss and tell him that you were listening to a podcast on the clock.
That's beside the point.
You're welcome.
I'm going to go ahead and continue to give my shout outs to a lot of my friends who are local business or their own little projects. I want to give a shout out to Queen Koopa Cosplay.
Hey.
She is a local cosplayer. Her name is Sarah. She has a Facebook page, again, Queen Koopa Cosplay. one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And unfortunately, the more I'm seeing about the cosplay community is that it's starting to become a little more toxic. I know, right?
A fandom becoming toxic?
Unfortunately. But she's just crazy talented. She was actually the only reason I ever did my very first cosplay. Just super nice, super talented. Check her page out. She's an amazing person.
Yeah. What cosplay was that?
That was Beppo, the polar bear in a jumpsuit from One Piece.
Oh, okay. So your first technical cosplay is also furry, right?
Yes. Yes, it was.
My shout out is to our one and only Caleb.
Oh,
Lord, this is a
listen,
circle.
I know,
I
right?
already did that.
Well, I didn't know you were going to, but
Awkward.
so just so you guys know, Caleb does all of our show prep. I mean, he doesn't tell us what books to read and everything, but he gives us the format that we're going to do. He spends a lot of time dedicated to this podcast, not just in the show prep, but also in the editing. On top of that, he's going to officiate my daughter's wedding.
I am.
No.
Yeah, and we just can't think of a better person to announce Tanya and Hunter to the world as a married couple.
We're going to nickname this episode 101 Ways to Make Caleb Cry.
Yes. so that's my shout out. Thanks a lot, buddy.
No, thank you, man. I appreciate that, buddy. And I could not be happier to be officiating Tanya and Hunter's wedding. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Listen,
She's
Tanya
sweet.
already got a shout out on this show, so just
She
kidding.
will come claw your
Yeah.
and I will hold her fabulous heels while she does it. Because she is an amazing dresser, and I love her.
She loves you guys too. So
Well, my shout out's going to go to and I promise this was not meant to be the Pat Caleb / Pat Caleb's friends on the back thing, but my shout out's going to a local nonprofit that I'm involved with. It's called The Van. Essentially, what it is, it's a local homeless outreach. It's 99.9% volunteer ran. We've only got one paid employee, and that's because we legally have to. If he could get paid less, he probably would, because that's the guy. That's the kind of person that Aaron Redden is. But what we do is we go out and we find people who live outside, who are experiencing homelessness, and we give them the material resources that they might need to make it from one day to the next. And we try to put them in touch with other organizations that can work on rehoming them, figuring out what's keeping them outside, and do whatever we can to make sure that they make it from one day to the next. If you're in Arkansas, then you know that we have had not only kind of a shitty winter, but we've also had an extreme amount of rain the past few days. Aaron and some guys have gone out in boats and rescued people in camps that had gotten basically landlocked and the water was rising. When it drops below 25 degrees, or if it drops below freezing and we're getting precipitation, they open up emergency shelters and spend days upon days and nights upon nights just making sure folks have a place to get indoors and they don't freeze to death. Like I said, I'm pretty heavily involved in it, but there are a number of amazing people who put their heart and soul into just helping folks, and it's given me a whole new perspective and outlook on life, and kind of given me a new direction.
So if you're in Central Arkansas, where can somebody donate clothing and needs to the van?
We have a number of drop-off locations throughout Little Rock, North Little Rock. I think there's Sherwood. We have one in Conway. If you go to the van's Facebook page or to its website, you can click on the About section, and it has a list of those drop-offs. You can always bring stuff out to our warehouse. We have a box out there that we put stuff in. Like I said, we run off donations. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Nobody's making money off this thing. We're just trying to help some folks. As of last count, there are about 1,300 people that have been identified as homeless or living either chronic or acutely outside on a point in time count. About 550 of those people are unsheltered, which means that they can't get into shelters. They don't have any. They're sleeping on the street or in tents out in the woods. And those are the people we try to get to.
So speaking of shelters, I know that there's certain weather events that trigger you guys opening the shelter for the night and bringing as many as you can in to get them warm and get them fed. What are the conditions for the opening of the shelter? And also when they open these shelters, they need food a lot of times to feed these people they're bringing in from the cold. This may be a hot meal that sits in their stomach and keeps them warm for the night or whatever. So watch for those events, and look for the van. They'll post it on Facebook.
Yeah, so what we do is we run an emergency shelter, which means that we don't have a brick and mortar place that we operate full time. It's just in case of emergencies. There's two churches, one in Little Rock, one in North Little Rock, that let us use their space. We get anywhere from 30 people in a location to 60 people in a location. So we pack it as full as we can. we don't turn anybody away, and I've only ever had to actually throw one person out for hitting someone, which is nice. Which is also, don't do that. But if it is 32 degrees and we are getting precipitation, so if it's freezing and it's snowing or ice, anything like that, we open up. Or if it's dry and 25 degrees, and we would love to be able to do it more, but as we are all volunteers, life doesn't stop when these things happen. So I'll stay up all night at the shelter, then roll out and go to work or school in the morning, and then try to go take a power nap and then do it all again, because these things kind of happen in spurts. So,
and Aaron has a podcast, a radio show.
He does.
now.
He has a radio show on 88.3 KBFM, I believe it is, on Mondays from 5 to 7. And you can also, it is streaming on his podcast page. I don't know how podcasts work, obviously.
So check it out. It's a good local thing that's being done to help people. If you live in Central Arkansas or coming through Central Arkansas and just want to help out, look them up on Facebook, find where their donation centers are. Help these people out. They can use whatever help you can get. These are not people that are out there, regardless of what your preconceived notions are. No one chooses to be unsheltered. No one chooses to be out in the cold and the wet and the rain. They're there. Caleb said it many times. We're all maybe one paycheck away from being homeless, or one missed paycheck away from being homeless, without the proper help or the support in your life. So get out there, help people. If nothing else, you can donate clothing or money or dog food or any number of items to the van. Get out there and help them out, guys. It's a good cause.
And I just want to say, if you're in another city or another state, not around Little Rock, and you don't see anything like this in your city, it's a good model. It all started off with one guy in a van. That's why it's called the van. And he did it on his own time. He just got people's old clothes through in the back, and he went around and found people, and he made friends with them. And you can do that in your city. It's a grassroots movement. You can do it wherever you are. If you see some people on the side of the road and you don't know what's going on with them, then go introduce yourself. Go step out of your comfort zone a little bit and talk. Not all superheroes wear capes, and they're not all in pages of comic books. And I am blessed and privileged enough to know a lot of those people. Well, so it's been not only a busy week for us, it's been a busy week all up in the nerd news, man. The geek industry. They are sprouting out news points like it's no tomorrow. So I'm going to start, and I guess it might be the biggest news, the biggest headline of the week, that Marvel is doing a fresh start starting in May. Last Tuesday, they announced that readers can expect a new series with new creative teams, new directions, and new beginnings. It's going to bring Marvel Legacy to an end. In truth, nobody really knows what that means.
That sound you heard was me audibly rolling my eyes.
But in truth, nobody really knows what that means. And I also don't think that Legacy was what people originally thought it was anyway. I think it was more of just as far as I've seen, it was a renumbering and a header, that's the most that anything has came out of it. But here's what we do know. We do know that Jason Aaron and Ed McGuinness are taking over the Avengers. And the title it's either renumbering or it's going to be split numbering to carry on their legacy.
I hope they do that, to be honest.
And they are giving us 18 issues in 1 year. And that's cool. The Avengers is one of my favorite books. I'm super excited.
Well, the cool thing about it is there's only going to be one Avengers book. So whereas it seems like you're buying more, you're really buying less to get the Avengers story, because you're not having to buy 3 Avengers books now to get the Avengers titles.
In theory, once again, it sounds good, but I'm going to wait to hold out until they actually practice it.
I've never collected Avengers, but I'm actually a big Ed McGuinness fan for his artwork.
Yeah.
I'm going to check out at least the first issue. I might jump on it. Artwork alone can sell me, and I'm assuming the stories are going to be good if you're excited about it. So.
I hope so, man. It's Jason Aaron.
See, I'm not familiar with him as a writer.
So I want to be 100% clear. I'm not being negative towards this.
Yes, you
I'm going to wait until I read it, of course, before I make a judgment on the actual title and the stories themselves.
I think that's fair. I think it's absolutely fair.
My issue is really the renumbering constantly. And I know I've had this argument with people online before about, well, what difference does it make? It's easy to tell the volumes apart. It is not easy to tell the volumes apart. Jerry used to work at a comic book store. He can tell you the struggle.
Yeah. Listen to the guy that's had to sort the back issues of Marvel, and it is a pain in the ass.
It is. I mean, I have 30,000 comics, and it's when you buy a new collection that you're adding to your collection, and you've got to figure out which volume that is. And you can say, go look at the indica. It'll tell you Marvel doesn't always have an indica in their books anymore. So it's not easy, people. That's my only issue with it. Outside of that, Marvel, keep doing what you're doing. Keep making better books, and we're going to keep reading.
Yep.
But
I have a lot of faith in CB, who is their new editor-in-chief. I think that that's a lot of the reason they're doing this is because he was like, okay, let's stop doing some of the things people have been complaining about. But I think he kind of misworded it when they rolled it out. But we'll see. We can just wait. Also flowing out of this, we found out that Jim Zub, who is one of the guys who is currently writing the Avengers No Surrender with Mark Waid and Al Ewing, is set up to take over Champions, which was the book that Bendis was running for a while, and I forget who's running it now. It may still be.
I think it's still Bendis for now.
And that's going to be cool because
Is it
Zub
still
is
going to be the same group of cast of characters?
I don't know yet. I just know that he's going to be writing it. He'll start his run on it in April, and that's going to be fun.
For those of you that haven't been following the Champions, it's basically been a Teen Avengers book.
Yep.
It's been Hulk, Miss Marvel, Nova,
Something Squirrel
Girl,
Viv Vision has been on it.
Yeah, it's been all the teenage heroes, not all of them, but they, you know how it is, a section of the teenage heroes in Marvel. So the other thing that came out was from DC Comics is So Long for Supersons. It's been a fantastic story, a fantastic series by Peter Tomasi and Jorge Jimenez, and it's coming to an end. For those of you that don't know, Damian Wayne, Bruce Wayne's son and the current Robin, and Jonathan Kent, also known as Clark Kent's son, and Superboy, and they've been having some fantastic team-up stories where one point, Jonathan Kent's, I don't want to say 2 or 3 years younger than Damian Wayne, and so there was one where he crossed over and helped the Teen Titans, and the rest of the Teen Titans wanted him on there, but, you know, Damian wouldn't let him join because he's not technically a teenager yet, so, because, you know, Damian's an asshole. So, unfortunately, it's being canceled, but, you know, sometimes canceling a book is okay if the story's done, and they're doing it because they're out of story. And I'm kind of hoping that that's what this is rather than them running it into the ground.
I don't know. It's got something to do with Bendis coming over. Like,
I'm sure.
That's what it feels like.
All the Superman stuff has something to do with Bendis coming over because they're relaunching Justice League as well.
Yep.
Canceling Justice League of America. And he's getting both of the Superman titles, I think. Action and Superman. So I have a feeling that it's going to be his little playground now is what it's coming down to for Superman. Anything regarding Superman.
A little bit of news that caught my attention, just a quick one because it's only in development, but it has been reported that Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur are going to be getting an animated TV series.
Nice.
I haven't heard that.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
That's awesome.
If you don't know, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur is about a young African-American girl who is like genius-level intelligence.
Smartest person in the Marvel Universe currently.
She's official. Okay,
Yeah.
I knew she ranked high. Didn't know she was official. Well, there you go. Who develops a psychic connection to a giant red T-Rex. It's a
Devil Dinosaur's rad.
It's a continuation from a book that started, good God, what, 60s?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Devil
he's an
Dinosaur's
old
forever.
character.
And it's just modern take, and it's adorable. It's fun. It's a good little comic book, and now it's getting an animated series where I think it's perfect.
And it's one of Vanetta's favorites, right?
Oh yeah, she loves it a lot.
Yeah.
And it's actually a good movie with a person with dinosaurs as opposed to that bullshit Jurassic Park thing they made where Star-Lord spoke to raptors.
I still wait for that time whenever you're finally able to get a giant inflatable T-Rex outfit and follow her around in that cosplay.
If I could get a red one, it would have been on. So I'm looking forward to that.
I've kind of got like a little two-part news. The first one I'm just going to mention, and it's that our good friend, Caleb Alexander, has
Again,
finally taken our golden advice and read. Did you read the whole volume?
I did.
He read the first volume of My Hero Academia. And I could not be prouder of him.
I read my first manga.
I'm very happy.
We finally popped his cherry on that, and it's a beautiful thing. I feel like, you know, Caleb really had some reservations about doing this. It was really difficult. It was a big trial and a big hurdle for you, but I'm proud of you, buddy.
Thank you, man.
You're here.
This is definitely the Pat Caleb on the back episode. I love
I know.
this. I did read it, and then we are actually going to have a episode in the future where we talk about manga, talk about anime, and we're going to dive into that, and I'll talk about what I thought about it. And I'm not going to ruin that right now, but I did read it.
Absolutely.
I digested it. It was an experience, and I had a good time.
I saw it sitting on the table, and I felt like I kind of needed to bring it up. So on to my real news, more of like a speculation than news. Earlier on this week, there was on Newsarama, they posted about there possibly being...
You don't have to give credit. We don't do that here. I'm totally playing, dude.
So anyway, they made a post that I saw on Facebook about the possibility of a new Avengers Justice League comic. Now, I say speculation because they've essentially saw a bunch of tweets by Scott Snyder and Jason Aaron, because they're both running those respective books. Yeah.
Yep.
They were just kind of tweeting back and forth about doing a Justice League Avengers crossover again. And then Axel Alonso, who is the former editor-in-chief and former DC editor, chimed in talking about being interested in doing it. And they've been building for it for quite some time. But it was all just like, I don't know, very subtle. So you don't know if they were just kind of like joking with each other, or if it was, yeah.
There's been Avengers, there's been DC Marvel crossovers before. They've all been really good, and we would love to see that happen again.
Honestly, I thought that was back in the 90s, but it actually, the last one came out in 2003 to 2004, and I personally have not read it. I would be interested in going back and reading it before I read this one, but the premise of it was actually kind of cool. The only other thing that they've done like that has been the amalgam stuff, which was fucking great because you got so many like crazy mixtures of characters that I really enjoyed, and those little one shots that they did were just really cool.
Next up on the list, try to power through this real fast. Nightwing is getting a new creative team starting in May. Benjamin Percy is writing it. Christopher Mooneyham is taking over the art duties. It's going to start on number 44, and one of my favorite artists working right now is a guy named Declan Shelby. He's going to do the covers.
Awesome. I mean, Nightwing's been good. I haven't read the last couple story arcs, but I'm planning on starting to read it again. It's been really good, but I'm ready for new creative ideas and new blood flow into it.
Fingers crossed it's coming. Nightwing's one of my favorite characters, so from DC anyway. So I'm excited about that. Last on my list is the fact that Image Expo took place this past week. We've talked about these kind of events before where creative types, especially surrounded by a single publisher, they all get together and they talk about their plans for the future, what they're going to be doing. They lay out the next 12 to 16 months of books. And for Image, what they do is they get together and do a bunch of industry presentations, and then they release what promises to be incredible series that are set to be published over the next year. Right now, it looks like we're getting a book called Blackbird by Sam Humphries and Jen Bartel. We're getting a book called Dead Rabbit by Jerry Duggan and John McCrae. Death and Glory by Rick Remender, and the last name is Bingle, but I'm not sure what. Juke Joint by Miss T. Franklin and Maria Nugent, or Maria Wynn. I'm not sure if that's either one of those is how to pronounce it. If you're mad about it, come fight Sean. Todd McFarlane has got 5 new projects coming out. And then Oblivion Song by Robert Kirkman and Lorenzo De Felici is coming out. And there's a lot more on that list, but those are names that you should recognize. If you're all into comics, then you know who Todd McFarlane is. You should know who Rick Remender is. You should know who Jerry Duggan is. And personally, I think you should get to know who T. Franklin is. A lot of people are not familiar with her work. She just had a really, really great book come out. It's called Bingo Love, and you should go look that up.
And by Todd McFarlane projects, that's basically meaning that he's probably just throwing money at people and being like, hey, here's an idea for a character, go write this.
That's fine. I'd like to personally be one of those people. If you could throw money at me, that would be great.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm sure there was a lot more news stuff that came out. I don't have anything else, but I'm sure there was a lot of stuff that happened. If people out there in the Southern Fried Geekery listenership, if they hear of any news and they want us to elaborate or to know our thoughts on it, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on the email. Let us know what you're hearing and what you're thinking, and we can dive into it. We love to hear from you guys.
Absolutely.
So we read some comic books this week.
We absolutely did.
But before we dive into those,
you guys read comic books this week?
It's a thing we do.
Son of a...
Before we get into those, though, a listener had reached out to us a while back and said they really liked what we were doing on the show, but they asked us where we got our name from, Southern Fried Geekery, and what it meant. And in truth, there's not a lot of background to it. We're all dudes that live in Arkansas. If you can't tell from my voice, I'm deep battered in South. And country is shit sometimes. But that's where Southern Fried Geekery came from. But what they mentioned was like, it would be cool if you tied in the segments of your show to your title. Make it make sense for something. That's what we're going to attempt to do. in some way, shape, or form. We're going to, each segment, we're going to try to throw it back to the title. So if you follow us on Instagram, we've been posting pictures of the books that we have read this past week, and we're hashtagging it Fresh Picks. So we're going to have a Fresh Picks section. We're going to have Deep Fried Comic of the Week, and we're going to try to think of titles for our segments. But we also want you guys out there to help us out with that. If you guys get creative with us, if you can think of a really funny bit or a funny title for the sections that we do, comic book news, book of the week, anything like that throws back to Southern soul food, the weird greasy things that we put
Especially
in our
fried
bodies.
food.
I feel that we're dangerously close into having a Southern Fried Geekery cooking channel on YouTube.
Someday we may get a Southern Fried Geekery cookbook together.
Yeah.
And donate the money to charity if we
That
can
would
all
be
get
rad.
some. Yeah.
That would
you
be
you
good.
heard it here first, folks. Go ahead and start pre-ordering your copies. They're going to be about roughly $60 USD.
Yeah,
apiece.
give
you
us.
can mail the money directly to me if you want.
Do not mail the money directly to Jerry.
We don't let Jerry handle much of anything. But we
Except
love
your
it.
tax
So
information.
my
Jesus.
deep fried book of the week is Runaways, which the first story arc wrapped up about 2 weeks ago, and I just got around to reading this book. It's by Marvel. So this volume was written by Rainbow Rowell and with the art by Kris Anka.
Very cool. I don't know those two people.
Me either, but it's good.
Worth it.
The characters were originally created by Brian K. Vaughan and Adrian Alfana. I was really apprehensive about this book going in because, as anybody knows that's read the original Brian K. Vaughan stuff, it's some of the best comic writing for young superheroes that you'll ever read.
Brian K. Vaughan is one of the best comic writers.
Yeah, he really is. So I was really, really apprehensive about this book. I read it, in all fairness, all 6 comics at the same time, so it maybe helped my flow on the book. But I was wrong about this book, and happily wrong about this book. I really enjoyed it. It's a setup book. It took all 6 issues to get to where they were going, but they finally got there. And so it starts, and Gertie, who died in the Brian K. Vaughan stuff, was dating Chase on the team. It's a couple of years down the road. I think specifically it says 2 in the
I believe
book.
so.
He just can't live with himself with letting her die, and he has a time machine and goes back and saves Gertie.
Nothing good ever happens when you
No.
do some timey-wimey bullshit.
And Nico makes sure she tells him that repeatedly throughout the
yeah.
book, that he has fucked up royally and they just don't know how bad yet. So he goes, he brings Gertie back. Now Gertie's still a teenager. They're all in college and adults except for Molly, who was much younger than the rest of them. They're all separate, living in different areas and doing different things. Victor's dead. It takes a couple of issues. They finally get back together. They're at Molly's grandma's trying to get her to join. Turns out Molly's grandma is a crazy cat woman that adopts all the strays. Well, then you find out that she's actually experimenting on the strays,
What the fuck?
and she has given them all psychic powers so that they're reading
Holy
Molly's mind. And she gave them the same powers that she gave Molly's parents, where Molly's parents had psychic abilities.
Yes.
So she gave them the same powers.
They were mutants, right?
No, they were experimenting on. We thought they were mutants.
I think that's maybe Marvel retconning
Yeah.
because they don't have the
But
right.
originally she was a mutant.
She was called a mutant when it first started. I don't know if it's been now changed.
They
because of
were
this.
called that, but yes, now they're saying that crazy cat lady grandma experimented on both of her parents and made them psychic, and that Molly's the fruition of all of her experiments in the extreme.
Nice.
And yeah, it ends up with Old Lace eating a lot of cats.
Yes.
And
As a cat owner, how did this issue make you feel?
it didn't show it. It showed him coughing up a fur ball.
Just,
so that
just psychic enhanced cats
Or
in
her.
general. How do you feel about that? Do you wish all of your cats were psychic enhanced?
no, not really.
Yeah, they can read your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad. So it ends up, of course, with them all sitting in her grandma's backyard discussing what they're going to do in the future, and onward and upward. And I was, again, I know Sean and I discussed this earlier before we started the podcast, and I'll let Sean speak for himself. I feel like maybe because I read it all in one volume, that it helped the flow of it instead of having to wait for each issue, which
Yeah.
maybe with an origin story or a beginning story is the best way to do it. Because sometimes when you're doing an origin story and you're having to wait month to month, it kind of gets boring.
Like I said, I do agree that I think probably reading one shot was better. That's how I started Runaways, was by trade paperback. I did feel this new story had pacing issues, but again, origin story, getting the band back together, they are always a bit slow. But by the end of this last issue, I was smiling again at having my Runaways back together, so it was worth it.
Go out, get the first story arc's done, the first trade paperback will probably be out next month, I would guess. Pick that up, sign up for the floppy. If you'd all enjoy it, I highly suggest you go back and read the Brian K. Vaughan stuff, because it's absolutely amazing. It's some of the best comic book writing you'll ever read. And then, which you can say about anything that man writes. I know we just said that earlier, but it's true. If you're enjoying the television show and didn't know that it came from comic books, it comes from comic books.
That was what I was going to ask you guys about. I've read the Brian K. Vaughan stuff, but I haven't read the new stuff. We, over the winter break-ish, kind of binged through all the television show on Hulu. Send us money.
Yeah, they actually put a good quality show out.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But what did you guys, as Runaways fan, and Sean, you're probably one of the biggest Runaways fans I know. What did you think about the show? How they changed some stuff up?
I enjoyed it overall. Definitely, but like almost like any other show, towards the middle it starts to kind of drag out.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because they took the original Brian K. Vaughan story, and of course had their own interpretation. A lot more fleshing out of the parents.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the parents were taken care of by, I want to say, halfway through the first Brian K. Vaughan run. They were no longer a factor, so they made the parents the issue the entire first season, assuming there is going to be a second season. But overall, enjoyed it. One little shout out, just because if anyone in the film industry is listening, I'm glad that they used as much animatronics for Old Lace as they could get away with. They obviously needed CG, the full body shots, but just I appreciate you use CG when you need to, use practical when you can, because it still looks good 20 years later.
And I'm really picky whenever it comes to certain shows. Like if there's one thing that I really, really wanted in it and they get it wrong, then I'm just, the whole show to me is gonna, that was my make or break for that show, was Old Lace. I fucking love dinosaurs. It's great.
I know.
Yeah.
We know you do.
Okay. So, but yeah, no, that.
Why do you kill him in Monster Hunter?
That is not the point, Craig. But anyway, if I could befriend them, I would, Craig. But yeah, no, I loved Old Lace, and it. The effects in the show were actually pretty good, and they absolutely nailed all the characters, like all the kids. I was,
and some of the kids nailed each other.
If I had to gripe, and granted the actress is very young, but Molly is just, she does not look as young as she is.
Seemed a little bigger.
It's a tall,
Like taller.
it's a tall actress.
Yeah.
It's fine. She doesn't give off the young girl, even though I believe I read she's only 13 or 14. She's not that much older than Molly should have been in the beginning anyway.
I mean, now I just want an episode where Old Lace just murders cats. I'd watch
It's
that.
amazing.
I got a book.
But I would say out of all the cast is fantastic. Alex absolutely nailed in look, character, and appearance. As long as they not going to give away any potential spoiler for the next seasons or whatever they're going to do with it, but he's on point, and Nico is like perfect casting.
Yeah.
So my only issue was that it's called the Runaways, and they never freaking ran away. At least until I got to go back and finish watching the season. But I watched the first couple episodes, and I was like, when are they going to run away?
Yeah.
You know, but
I would have at least liked gotten their Chase's little Lost Boys hideaway underground thing for at least an episode or two.
Yeah.
I think that would make people feel better.
Chase
about it.
Was his at La Brea in the comics?
I think it was near it or something like that.
Yeah.
It was definitely like an almost. It reminded me of Lost Boys.
I guess one more thing. My only little nitpick to it, the daughter, Carolina.
Yeah.
I really love that they would put a gay character into the series, a lesbian character. That being said, leading up to it, I don't really feel like they really gave it any chemistry. Like
They did not.
It just kind of happened, and that's the only thing that I would have kind of liked, is them to hint at it a little bit more before she just kind of like, you know,
if I remember,
kiss and
right,
everything like
go
that.
ahead. I'm sorry.
And I'm gonna use a word that we mentioned before. It gets unfortunately abused a lot online. But it was, in this case, I truly do feel they forced it very
It was
quickly.
shoehorned.
Yeah, shoehorn might be a better term.
Like the Gert and Chase stuff, you know, happened. It was something that we were working towards.
And it has nothing to do with sexuality. You had two characters who were working towards and building up a relationship, and then a relationship happened with those characters. Now you take these other two characters who happen to both be female, you barely, if at anything, hint that there might be an attraction between them. You don't lead up to it. There's no work building up to a connection between those two, and then all of a sudden they're making out. Yeah. That works if you're drunk at a party. Mm-hmm. If you find yourself randomly hooking up at a party with not building to it, that works. But when you're trying to build this up to be something else, especially in a queer relationship, build it up. Yeah, and that was kind of one of the things is like they had a little scene at the beginning and at the party where she was looking at another girl, and that was kind of a thing. But it seemed like before that, it was mainly just Gert trying to convince her,
So, if I remember right in the comics, wasn't it Nico? Her and Nico hooked up for a little while.
Honestly, I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I've read the original books. I think she either
they kissed
approached or maybe a kiss. Definitely not relationship because Carolina didn't have one until much later when they introduced the scroll.
And that was great.
Yeah.
Go read those books.
Yep, absolutely. So, who's next?
I'll take it if nobody minds. My Southern Fried book of the week is smothered, covered, and chunked in nerddom.
Yes. And a beautiful cover.
So my book of the week is the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover 2, because I actually had one of these last year. This book is written by none other than Mr. James Tynion IV, who is one of the architects of the Batman universe right now, along with Scott Snyder and Tom King. The dialogue was done by a guy named Ryan Furrier, who I've read some of his stuff before, and I just thought it was interesting that they had him go back and do all the dialogue. Art by Mr. Freddie Williams II and colors by Jeremy Colwell. Freddie Williams is a fucking beast.
Yeah, he is.
I'm going to just point out, just
these pages.
Yeah, is one of my comics. To me, are 80% art, 20% writing, which you might find it surprising because I gush about writers a lot. But for me to tap into a book, so much of the visual storytelling has to be done by the art. He works in a painted style. Everything is animated and moves. It's gorgeous. So what this book is about, it carries off of the first crossover where the Turtles came into Batman's world, and there were some situations that Shredder was Shredder. It turns out he was evil, and so they used a mainline. Yeah, I know, crazy, right? And he turned all the Batman villains into like anamorphic versions of himself. Mr. Freeze was an evil polar bear, and that was dope.
That's amazing.
I know. Beautifully drawn. That's in the first arc. It's actually collected. You should go pick that up. In this one, Batman comes over to the Turtles verse. They're in New York City, and he brings a quintessential Bat villain with him. And it's none other than Bane, the Venom pumped up guy himself. And this was actually number 4 of the series. It's part 6, and they're getting down into solving the problem. Part of what makes this book so spectacular is that
it's the art.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll never quit gushing over the art.
I mean, the amount of detail in these pages is just unbelievable.
On his comic.
I need 3 copies of this, but no, it's really because there's a subthread where Donatello he's doubting himself. His power is brain power. The rest of the guys, and he's a good fighter in his own right, but the rest of the guys are the meat and potatoes of the group. They're beating the shit out of folks. I mean, they're the kung fu masters. He uses his brain. That's how he gets by. So far, it's let him down, and there's a whole lot of self-doubt. He doesn't think he's needed, and he's honestly causing more problems by not working with the group. By branching out on his own, he creates some conflicts that take some places, and so he's going to have to work through that. The other part of this book is Damian Wayne, and we spoke about him earlier, and this is Bruce's son. He came over with him into the Turtleverse. Damian will kill everybody. Damian is the only person who can probably kill Batman. Like,
God help us when Damian becomes Batman.
Oh, he's just a sociopath in the most beautiful, beautiful way. But there's this one scene in there where everybody's kind of down on themselves, and they're all discussing things, and Damian just basically pops up and is like, hey, you guys talk too much. And just nails the character. Tynion.
I always say Tynion.
I think it's Tynion technically, but I'm not 100% sure. Tynion writes Damian well in every book that he's in.
If it's not Tynion,
you can come on this podcast and fight us about us not pronouncing your name.
You up. That was all that was. Perfectly.
I'm slacking. Sorry.
But yeah, so the group is getting ready to figure out how to go fight Bane, how to go stop it, and Bane has introduced Venom to the Foot Clan, which causes a lot of problems, as you can imagine. And it's neat because there's actually 3 groups in this book. You have the Turtle/Batman team, you have Venom and his Foot Clan, and then you have an offshoot of the Foot Clan being ran by a pretty badass female character.
Probably, is it, was her name Kanai?
I think so.
Yeah. It was Shredder's daughter.
It is Shredder's
which
daughter.
they kind of mixed her up occasionally. She would have been Osaki. Is that
Roku Saki?
Yeah. Splinter, or was
Roku
that
Saki
Shredder?
was Shredder.
Shredder. She was Splinter's daughter, I know, in the last animated series that they did.
Yeah, again,
Really?
turtles are not my forte. I'm more of a bat character, and that's what drew me into this book. But I'm absolutely loving it. I want to get to know some more of these characters. Casey Jones and April O'Neil are in this book, and there's this really, really badass fight scene to where Master Splinter actually fights Bane, and they just have this knockdown, drag out, and he's fighting for his sons. It's a really touching moment to where he's just done. He's done watching his kids get hurt. He's done seeing Bane do all these things. And he just beats the ever-loving shit out of Bane, and Bane beats the ever-loving shit out of him. And they go back and forth until the world around them kind of collapses. And you get these beautiful action scenes drawn, painted, done however they're done by Freddie too. He's just Freddie. Yeah, I want some of these pages. It's stunning. If you at all like the Turtles, or if you at all like the Batman, and you want to see how a crossover between two different publishers is done correctly, then read this book. It's worth it. So as we all know about Bane is not subtle. He's about as subtle as a sledgehammer. And so they're all wondering, like, how do we find him? Well, he drapes the Statue of Liberty on a Bane mask. He said, come find me. Bring your fight to me. Go grab this book. It's a lot of fun. The first 4 issues are out now. There's 2 more coming out. It's worth it for the art alone, even if you don't care about these characters.
Yep.
But the characters are also really well written. It's been put together phenomenally. It's already in the running for my miniseries of the year.
That sounds really awesome, but all I can think of now is how much I want Teenage Mutant Kung Fu Turtles now.
I want a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover with Daredevil, since it's a spoof of Daredevil.
Right.
Yeah,
Why have
cool.
they not done that? Have the hand and the fist?
Yeah.
Or the hand and the foot?
Also, side note, Splinter is Hamato Yoshi.
Yoshi.
It gets there.
Yeah.
It gets there eventually.
Your knowledge of all like these weird quirky things.
Anything
Random.
Japanese.
Yeah.
Random as hell.
If you would do a brain scan, you just got like an area of your cerebellum that just says Japan. It's shaped like Japan, and it just lives in your face.
It's true.
Let's let Jerry go. New guy on the podcast.
So, occasionally there is something that comes along that is just so profound and amazing that it really makes you rethink your entire existence in life. The book that I read this week was a little Vertigo title called Deathbed. It was amazing.
It was amazing.
If you haven't looked into it at all, which I guess that's why you're listening to this podcast. Also, this is my DFBW, which, I'm coining that's what I'm going to use. Or is it
Deep Fried Book of the Week.
Yep, Deep Fried Book of the Week. DFB dub.
Wait, I stepped away for a minute because I'm drained. Did you just say you were DTF?
No, I did not say I was DTF. Neither am I PB. So that's right. I brought it up before you guys could. And it is written by Joshua Williamson, who did Ghosted, Dear Dracula, Masks and Mobsters, Birthright, and Nailbiter, and Evolution. Which those are some really
Nailbiter is
titles.
absolutely
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Evolution's amazing.
Birthright, Ghosted
amazing.
was
Yeah.
pretty good too. The art, which is the big thing that really pulled me in, is Riley Rossmo, which and I didn't know before I looked all this information up, but he's from Canada. Why is all the talent coming from Canada? Like,
because they have health care, so their talent doesn't die at a young age.
So if you don't know Riley Rossmo, he's worked on Green Wake, Proof, a little series called Bedlam. He's done some Dakin from Marvel. Constantine worked on Batman Shadow series. My favorite out of the list of things that he's done was a title that came out probably about 5 or 6 years ago called Cowboy Ninja Viking.
Yes.
Which, if you don't know anything about it, it was
It's
really
just
good.
exactly what it says.
The format for it, the story for it was really cool. They did have some weird issues because they couldn't decide if they wanted to make it an ongoing or like a miniseries. But it was really good, and I totally recommend it. I'll get into that some other time whenever Caleb finishes reading.
So just to segue on the Riley Rossmo, because Riley Rossmo is legitimately one of my favorite artists working in comics today. I know there's a ton of talent, but I've followed this guy from the beginning of his career.
Right.
Have you read Rasputin?
Oh, no, I haven't. And I thought I wrote that in here, but I guess I didn't.
No, because our local comic book store got them in damaged, issue
Oh,
number 1.
shit.
It never got them replaced. So all of us that were on it never got it.
That's unfortunate. I got this book. It was
Yeah.
one of my favorites. And this might have been actually before we all met that I jumped on this book. But it was written by Alex Gresham. And that was where I first discovered Riley. And he's just gotten better. He was phenomenal then, and it's just gotten better.
And
You
kind
should
of
read
a
Rasputin.
segue from Rasputin. The person that's doing the colors on this is Ivan Placencia.
Yes.
And he actually worked on Rasputin. He's done some work on Flash, Constantine, and The Astounding Wolfman, which I didn't get into, but it looks like it is really fucking cool.
Astounding Wolfman is really good. Well, the first half of Astounding Wolfman's really good. At the end, it takes a bad turn.
That was
Continue on.
Was that a
It's
image?
Kirkman.
Oh, okay, it was.
It was
Did it
Kirkman.
start off as Kirkman and then he got off of it? And
No,
somebody else
Kirkman
went
wrote
over
the whole thing, and Jason Howard did the art on it.
So anyway, our book opens up with somebody narrating. It doesn't ever tell us who's narrating or anything like that. It could be a third person of one of the main characters. It opens up to this shed, and it's talking about our first words are often screams. And you see this little shed on this little like hill, kind of like in a bayou area. And this man comes running out. The next is a 2-page spread, which is absolutely beautiful. And he's holding up this child. And it's just this crazy marshy swamp area. And there's all these like monsters and shit all over the place. So just from that right there, you're like, oh, the beauty of childbirth with monsters and shit everywhere.
You're
just
sold
like,
immediately.
well, this is going to be interesting. So then they give us a huge, awesome title page. And then off on the sides, it has a bunch of years combined with like few pictures of just random things. But it's the next 2-page spread that really hooked me in, guys. They're introducing us to our main character. She is a writer. She's always wanted to be a writer. Her main claim to fame at the moment, which I guess technically isn't really a claim to fame because she ghostwrites for people. So you have the word bubbles are kind of telling her story, and you're seeing all of these little panels of her life, and then it's followed by this giant picture of her on the toilet talking to her her publisher, and they've basically got somebody new for her to interview. Her name is Valentine Richards, and they just go by Val. The guy that she's going to be interviewing is Antonio Luna, and she's like, well, I've never heard of him, so why the fuck should I care?
Keep in mind, in this page, she's literally taking a shit, smoking a cigarette, and screaming into the phone.
Yeah, she's sitting on the toilet. There's this great little montage of little clips.
That's
of, like,
good comics, y'all.
vibrators, used
It is
condoms,
good
and
comic.
bar shit going all over the place. So it kind of shows her lifestyle a little bit. Next scene, you get her pulling up to the place from her Uber. It's just this big, creepy ass old mansion. You still got your narrations going, which is really making me wonder who is writing this.
I think it's her.
Well, yeah, because it almost sounds like it's in a third person
Oh, okay.
as it's going. So it
I read it as if
might-
it was her,
might be.
but I might have
Yeah.
been wrong.
Well, I mean, it might be her talking like in a third person because she speaks like about herself, like Val took the gig,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So anyway, she's just talking about how like cliche this all looks and everything. She goes up to the mansion and there are servants waiting. She immediately notices like how ornate all this shit and decorations and everything are in his house, and that the mood, like the lighting's kind of down. So you're kind of like into this thing, like what is she getting into? Like what is this? What's this about this guy? Then we get another beautiful, like this is like the fourth
It's a
2-page
beautiful book,
spread
yeah.
that we've gotten, and dear Lord, Riley Rossmo has really pulled this together. So the next scene that we get is her walking with one of the help, and they're going down this hallway and these stairs, and there are these giant ornate paintings of this man's life, and like it's some pretty epic shit. So like the first one you get is it looks like him and a Captain Ahab thing fighting a giant electric eel. And then you see like him in some other country. There's like palm trees and stuff, and it looks like he's almost got a family. He's got a hippie thing going on with a giant beard and long hair, and a bunch of kids around.
It's very Roma
Yeah.
gypsy style.
The next one looks like Vietnam, like he's in all the fatigues and everything, and he's got the porn stash and the jar head helmet, and there's a helicopter in the back.
Born to Kill tattoo on his shoulder.
Born to Kill tattoo. And then the last one is kind of, I thought that was one of the most interesting other than the first one. It almost gives off a pulp vibe to like the spirit and stuff like that. He's wearing a domino mask, and he's got like that adventurer look going on. He's got a whip in one hand and a machete in the other, so it's definitely big Indiana Jones
Yeah, it's a
adventure
throwback.
vibe.
What's beautiful about that page, and it's a technical thing of it, and this is just where my appreciation of Riley's art, I could just gush about it all day. It's a double-page spread, and it's panelless, but there's essentially 4 panels, and he's walking you through a timeline.
Yeah.
It's visual storytelling. There's so much being told to you just by this page that is subtextual, that you don't even realize that you're being told, because framed around this page, you also have these, they look like they're
Mummies.
zombies or mummies
Yeah.
or these supernatural
And-
creatures
and
that
you-
are watching her
you-
walk through the hallway.
Yeah, and you don't really know if they're real or what's going on with them, but they're like on the top and the bottom of the page, and you're just kind of like, okay, well that could be there for like mood or creepy or something like that, and they certainly don't notice them, so maybe they're not there.
And Ivan Placencia's color palettes just set the whole thing
Yeah.
off.
Oh, it's beautiful. A lot of purples and indigos and greens in there. It's really nice, and that's one of the cool things about Val herself is her hair is kind of like this pastel, like sort of off pink. I thought it was a really, really nice touch. So anyway, she finally meets the man himself, Antonio Luna, and he is bedridden. Like he's hooked up to an IV.
He is on his deathbed.
He's on his deathbed. Wow, that's where the name of the story comes from. Okay.
That light bulb.
So anyway, we get this really awesome page of a section of panels where they're kind of going back and forth. He's just, talking about social commentary with her, and there's a really dim light in the room, and there's a storm brewing outside. So every now and then, like it'll be really dark, and then you'll hear thunder, and the lightning will light up the room, and then all of a sudden you see all these fucking zombies and shit all over the walls.
Closing in on them.
And every time the lights go out and then the lightning turns it all back on, they get closer and closer until they're just swarming. He basically says he has enemies that are looking to silence him, and he's talking about how he's dying, but he's going to die on his own terms. So then the very next page we get is all of these things are surrounding them, and he basically props up on the bed and he's like, "Can I tell you a secret?" And he bursts out of the bed fully naked except a giant utility belt and just his giant dong. Full male frontal nudity. At which point he jumps out of this bed and he's armed to the teeth, and there are all these monsters and shit, and he's just murdering them. He is running through them. And she's kind of like, they're telling about how she's feeling about this whole situation. She's just basically just stunned in silence. And he's talking about how he is dying, but he's not dying in how
Right.
she thought that he
Yep.
was dying. He wasn't sick or anything, but he figured that if he made it known that he was dying, that all of his enemies would come out of the woodwork.
The whole thing was a setup.
And so he goes to this closet, puts on this fucking costume that we saw previously, where he's like got this double-breasted suit and he's got the domino mask, and he looks like he is ready for war. And he's basically told her, "I'm going to give you the story of a lifetime, and I want you to come with me." It basically ends with them standing in front of the house while it's set ablaze, and she decides that she wants in, and the monologue basically says, "Oh, she is going to regret this."
Yeah, it's a wonderful book.
Yeah, it was just
It was a great first issue.
insane.
So I guess it's stupid to ask when we're going to anywhere. Are you along for the ride?
I am definitely along for the
Very
ride.
cool.
But the cover's really cool. I posted that on the IG page
You
and
did?
everything. If anybody wants to check it out, highly recommend it.
I regret not picking it up.
You need to-
I'm probably gonna go back and
If
pound
nothing
this.
else, you should grab it because one of the main characters is an extremely hot older bear dude, and I think for me that you all should support my love of really hot older bears.
If She can read mine, at least to read it.
Because
You can
if this sells well, then they'll start putting naked older bears in more books. And I think if that needs to be happening, that's what's going to save the comic book industry. Dongs for everybody.
Right.
Beat that, Sean.
I cannot. I have no Savage Dragon to counteract. So all I can bring up is the same book I've been just gushing about on and on. My deep fried book of the week is Batman issue 41.
No.
Continuing the writings, Tom King, the return of artist.
I think you have to call him the Tom King.
The Tom King.
Yeah.
If you were offended I did not give you your proper title, come on the podcast and fight me about it. The return of, and I'm sure I'm going to brutalize your name, and again, same challenges issued. Mikel Janin?
Yep.
Jan?
Mikel Janin.
Yep, art and the art and also the cover, as well as June Chung is the colorist for this issue. And again, I'm just so glad to see Janin back because I mean the art in the last couple issues where they had a different artist was perfectly fine, but this art is just gorgeous to me. Absolutely love it. But
He's a powerhouse.
yeah, I mean there's a single issue like I'll get into it in a second. This is the start of a new arc. We ended the Gentleman story arc, which was amazing. For just two issues, I think is all I did.
2 or 3.
Yeah.
2 and then a follow-up.
So now we have one of a character who, and I said, admittedly, I'm always on and off Batman. Just whenever I hear a good story arc, I jump on it. Poison Ivy is going to be the focus of this one. It's called Everyone Loves Ivy. I don't like to get into too much of the story details. If you're reading this Batman series, you know what they've been doing with their characters, especially the villains. They're giving new emphasis and new looks on characters. And this one is truly showing what Ivy can do when she is super powered up.
Absolutely.
Or at least showing, maybe, I don't know if she's been powered up or this is just what she's always been capable of doing. Because it's a scary thought, but everyone hears Poison Ivy and they probably think in the basic terms of her controlled plants. But it's really her mind control pheromones that are really powerful. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong about this. Originally, she could only do that to men.
I think so. I think that was the thing.
But here in the last few years, they've acknowledged that anyone can find anyone beautiful.
Well, it was always so originally, and this is the thing that dates back to comics. That was always a sexist trope where
Right.
she used her feminine wiles and pheromones to try to make herself attractive, and that was part of why she was evil. You know, she's the evil female vixen trope.
I probably shouldn't even mention it, but my main thing of knowing about Poison Ivy was what Batman and Robin.
You poor man.
So
Poor man.
Hey,
Or
Uma
Rain
Thurman
was her
killed-
henchman.
She did the best. She was been fine casting on that
She
with
was
terrible
not wrong
direction.
with that.
Exactly. But just like Bruce Wayne is awoken to Alfred clearly being controlled, and if that's not scary enough, like I said, I'm not going to get too deep into the story. Basically, there's a whole like them all wanting to say is, "Do you love Ivy?" And there's a double-page spread of everyone from pilots to office workers to Superman and Wonder Woman replying to Ivy saying, "I love you."
Yep.
She has control.
I guess it's a good thing he's got all those safeguards in his cave.
Oh, you know what? I just noticed. I believe that's a Gorilla Grodd is responding.
Very
I love you
possibly.
as well. I just noticed at the bottom of the page.
It was incredible. That was an incredible
Right.
spread.
And then it's just all that response, and then an entire full page of just a portrait of
That's
Ivy,
really
which is
awesome.
I would buy that
Mhm.
artwork. I absolutely adore this artist. She's controlling a lot of people, and I feel like it's an interesting turn. I mean, a great little moment just showing like we saw Superman and Wonder Woman responding to Ivy, but when Batman finally loses his shit over a controlled Alfred, he's just ready to he's going to knock him out, so he quits controlling him, and his punch is interrupted by the Flash, who's also
Yeah.
controlled. And knocks Flash clean out in one punch because he's motherfucking Batman.
Well, and all, speed, force.
Yeah. But still,
What I
motherfucking
loved,
Batman.
because I read this as well this week, and what I loved about that is that you, at least for me, from my experience, you didn't know what was wrong. You didn't know what was wrong. Like
Right.
all you saw was Bruce get out of bed with Selena and kind of acting funny, and then walk in and just start punching Alfred, and like it doesn't explain. So it sets it up to where you think something's wrong with Batman, and you see him shoot himself in the neck and shoot Selena in the neck with something, and you're like, whoa, like who's mind controlling Batman? And what you realize is nobody. Everybody else is being mind controlled. And he actually just, what he did was, that was the mechanism to which he inoculated himself from their thing. And it took me a realize to pick it up on that, but once I did, it was just like, wow, that's just good storytelling. Like,
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm just kind of giving the summary. Just the way it's laid out, you don't understand what's going on.
yeah,
But you do know, like I said, from the cover that Ivy's involved, and they're really, again, Tom King's is taking characters and showing a new light. Even if we've seen the story of Ivy control people before, on this scale, to my knowledge, we haven't seen it. And again, it's just he is completely making this one of the best book series I'm reading.
So I've seen her control Gotham, but I don't know that I've ever seen her control the whole world, country. This book to me had a feel of a couple different tropes used in Batman before with the mind control. It happened in Nolan's Batman with the Scarecrow, where he was trying to control Gotham with the
right.
And it also happened in the Tim Burton Batman with the Joker gas. So it's similar to that, but she's controlling everything.
It's more widespread.
Yeah. So one thing I did notice in that spread panel is actually the lack of a certain person in the Swamp Thing.
That's true.
Yeah. So because he would be able to counteract her abilities.
It's the green, because she controls the green.
So I don't know that that's where they're going, but I did have, when you were looking at it right now, I didn't notice it when I read it, but when you were looking at it right now, I was like, there's no Swamp.
Tom King uses Swamp Thing in his books a lot.
So I did not notice a Swamp Thing there, and Batman and Swamp Thing have teamed up before recently, so it's a very likely scenario.
I actually had a question on that too, because I haven't read a whole lot of DC since Rebirth started, but I do know, like, from New 52 and everything, is like the red and the black and the green still like a really big thing?
As far as I know, they haven't like changed that yet. Mm-hmm. So until, the way I look at these things, because Rebirth wasn't a full relaunch, it's a readjusting of what was there. So unless they counteract it, it's still there. Okay. Unless they say otherwise, it's still a thing.
Right.
So in my mind, it's still there.
I love this story. My problem with using characters like Poison Ivy is that one minute DC will make Poison Ivy kind of a happy-go-lucky, almost an anti-hero, a friend, this, that, and the other. Environmental activist. And then the next minute she's using her powers for evil. The last story I read with her in it was a Poison Ivy crossover.
It was in Batman. She was in it, and everybody made a big deal about her being evil again.
Yeah.
I think the last time we seen her in this one was the flashback the War of Jokes and Riddles.
Yeah.
She was fighting on, I believe, Riddler's side.
Well, but see, that was a flashback, and that's what I get that in a flashback. But what they've done with the continuity is they brought her back to where she's, her and Selena are best friends in a lot of the continuity. Like, they're BFFs. They're hanging out and doing stuff together. Her and Harley are really good friends. There's this whole female empowerment trio thing that they have going on.
The Sirens.
Yeah, but then they flip it and they'll do something where she's kind of gone off the deep end and doing all this stuff. There's an inconsistency with that character there that, I don't know, I have a hard time with it because I like both of them. I think her as a villain is extremely intriguing because, yet again, it is sympathetic. But her as a happy-go-lucky buddy friend that also does some other stuff is really cool.
And personally, this is why I basically don't read as many books as I probably should, being on a comic book podcast, because companies tend to not, unless you're like one of the major flagship characters, there are many instances where they take a character in a different book that maybe has a different feel, and they'll write them any way they choose, and the editors don't care. And it is a big, long issue, and I haven't read Gotham City Sirens or any of her stuff with Harley Quinn, so this is the Ivy I'm more used to.
Right.
And I'm fine with it, but I get 100% what you're saying.
So, yeah, in the Harley Quinn book, and I have not read the Gotham City Sirens at all, but in the Harley Quinn book, yeah, she's Harley's friend, but Harley's batshit crazy.
That's true.
So we don't know if that's really what she is or if that's just what Harley's portraying her in her mind to be. So there's that. As far as the way she's been portrayed in the Bat books, the only example we have since Rebirth is in the Batman, the War of Jokes and Riddles, and now this. And All-Star Batman, she did the same thing. She was trying to control people using plants and so forth. So all of the instances since Rebirth have been her being evil again.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that as long as they stay consistent.
Or they transition her.
Yes.
Well, and that's what, they're just, the transitioning is what gets me, because I think it was 2 years ago, there was a Poison Ivy miniseries that came out. And Poison Ivy actually made / had 2 children, which were killed. Well, because she's trying to create life. That's what she does. But they didn't really do anything, and I guess that's what I'm wondering. Like, are they going to tie this into like pre-rebirth stuff and that? Not saying it's going to be a bad story. I'm loving it. I like this character, and I just want to know which version of this character it is.
Right. And it's something like, well, my final thought on it was going to be is what we've discussed before when we told everyone to calm the fuck down about Batman and Wonder Woman. Is this is the first of an arc. We'll see where they go with it. Hopefully they go in a direction where people who are more familiar with the character and her other iterations, it may all tie in together. Or she's back to being evil. I guess
I'm
we'll
fine
have to keep reading.
I'm fine with evil Poison Ivy. To me,
Oh,
that's what she should be. She is a well-written Poison Ivy is to show what happens when you have extremists in one sense. You know, we get a lot of extremists on the other side. This is showing extreme on the other side. And I'm okay with that because extremism in any direction is bad. And that's what this shows me. I'm okay with her being evil.
And it makes for a good story.
It absolutely does.
So, yeah, also, last thoughts is, it's a new arc. I'm excited to see where Tom King is going to take these characters because he is not disappointed in this run.
It's good stuff. It really is. If you're not on the Batman Weekly or the Batman bi-monthly book, it's
Bi-weekly.
Whatever.
It's
God,
either way, actually.
You made it from a 4-issue series a month to a 1-issue series every 2 months.
I want
Caleb.
more Tom King.
Bi-monthly can be twice a week or once every other week.
Bi-weekly
Bi-weekly is the same.
every other week.
It's both.
Bi-monthly is every other month.
Bi-weekly can also mean twice a week.
So
I promise you.
Whatever. You're the expert, Craig.
You guys
No,
lost
it's
me. You guys lost me at bi. I wouldn't hold it. Anyways, so all of those are good books, and I actually want to commend all of y'all on the artists that y'all. I mean, like I said, good writers all the way around. But the books we chose this week is kind of a showcase of some of the most talented artists working in comics right now.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful example of sequential storytelling that is just needs to be out there. So go pick up those books and go pick up. There's a lot more books on the shelf. Go to your local comic shop, order from Comixosity, check out dcbservice.com. Whatever you got to do to get your comic fix. It's, jump in, man. There's some good stories being told. But let's get a little bit ahead of ourselves. Let's check out some fresh picks from next week. These books are marinating a little bit. They're not quite ready to go into the oven.
I'm filled with country goodness and green penis. Wait a minute, that's terrible. I quit.
and we need to put the sound effects of steps and then a door closing.
Well, what you got, Jerry? What's your book of the week for next week?
Well, you guys might remember me back in episode 3 on our toy episode talking about.
I forget those days.
Back on episode 3 of our toy episode, I mentioned a little comic, and I actually talked to Mike about it. Him and I both kind of chimed in on that one. The current Thanos story, Thanos Wins. The newest issue 16, they're actually going to go into the backstory of the current Ghost Rider that they have. Now, I've since figured out who it is because they had it in the last issue. And if you don't remember that, it was this guy has a spirit of vengeance. He has the power cosmic, and he has chains made from the bones of the Sidorak, and he has a broken piece of the time gem.
And a t-shirt with a skull on it, right?
So, come to find out, because I was going to rage quit if it ended up being Deadpool, because he was a little quirky, a little sassy. It actually ended up being a millennium-old Frank Castle who has gone out of his fucking mind. And I'm pretty excited to find out how this came
How did he live for a millennium? Is the
Spirit of Vengeance probably kept him alive. I mean, Spirit of Vengeance and Power Cosmic. But from some of the pages that I've seen, it's just got him on a fucking motorcycle, armed to the teeth, Punisher shirt on, flaming skull. And does it make any more sense than the Punisher being the fucking Ghost Rider?
Right.
I could absolutely see that.
Great choice.
Yeah. Oh no, it was brilliant. But I'm pretty excited to continue that story.
I keep meaning to read that book. I really need to get caught up on it. I have the whole run. I just need to read it.
I think one of the things I'm going to do when I go by the store later today is I'm going to order the first 2
What
trades.
store is that?
Kapow Comics Store, whatever. So, I'm.
Shots fired.
Just kidding.
It's all right.
Warning shot.
He
Over
doesn't,
now.
listen anyway. It's all right.
But yeah, no, I really want to see the beginnings of this story at the beginning. So But yeah, totally recommend the current story. And yeah, Sean, what you got for us?
Oh my! What are we calling this again? The Comics on a Vine.
Can
We'll
we
go with it. We'll go with that.
Comics on a Vine.
Books on the Vine. Yeah.
Books on a Vine is Rat Queens of the second volume 2 issue number 8. Continue to be written by Curtis J. Weeb.
Weeb is the way I say it.
Curtis, I'm sorry I'm brutalizing your name, but as you know, you don't like how I'm saying it. Come on this podcast and fight me about it.
I'm going to go back and listen to every episode and find out what the record is of challenging people to come and fight.
I think I've done him at least twice.
And I feel like this one might have the record.
And as well as current artist Owen Gianni. Challenge issued as well.
Oh my god.
But yeah, continuing the current storyline involving a mysterious reality-altering wizard wreaking havoc in the Palisade. And the Rat Queens continue to figure out what the hell is going on.
If I remember right, like, people are disappearing.
Yes.
Like the wizard shows up and says, "Hey, I can make your life better. You want to come with me?" And they say, "Yeah." And then they go, and they're no longer remembered by anybody except for, what's her name, the little halfling girl.
You're going to call me out now. And
I can't think of her name either.
Does it start with a P?
No.
No.
I'm pretty sure not.
No?
But I forgot.
No, shut up, Jerry. You're wrong.
Shut up.
You should feel awful.
You're wrong, but we don't know either.
We may not be right, but we're not wrong. But yes, the cover is continuing with the disappearing person, where you got a good group shot, but the missing character, there's a character missing and completely whited out. It's like a very cool gimmick. And I just, like I said, that's a book I'm looking forward to next week. And again, I know I'm sure I've spoken about Rat Queens before on the show. If you haven't read it yet, you don't know what it's about. It's Dungeons and Dragons with beer and weed and just cussing. It's
you and your friends sitting around playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. I mean, these characters are cussing, drinking, taking mushrooms, and going out on adventures and killing shit. It's an amazing
and
book.
literally growing mushrooms on a dude and cooking the mushrooms in the suit.
Okay.
It's amazing. All female cast.
Yeah.
Written well, drawn well. Check it out.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Absolutely. All right, so my book of the week, or fresh comic on the vine of the week, whatever we're calling this,
We'll
segment
figure it out
now,
eventually.
is Redneck number 10 by Donnie Cates, Lissandro Estrin, and Nick Patera. It's by Image. I don't know if you guys have read this book or not, but it's basically redneck vampires is what it is.
Donnie Cates is also on Thanos.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to have to check this.
With Harrow County ending, this is probably my favorite horror-themed comic book going on right now.
I've been meaning to pick it up.
So, the first arc, it's now into the second arc. The first arc is them fighting with a church in town, and the church comes, and they kill one of the preacher's kids, and then the church comes, and there's this big battle. Now the law's after them. They're on the run. They take one of the preacher's kids with them because they accidentally turned him into a vampire. So they bring him with them so they can kind of show him the ropes. And they're on the run, and they actually end up in Waco. They leave Sulphur Springs, Texas, and end up at Waco at none other than David Koresh's compound.
Yep.
And take refuge there. And the preacher's son that came with him, or maybe he wasn't the son. Anyways, he was part of the preacher's group. He goes off on his own and is creating a vampire army because they didn't give him any of the rules yet. So he's out getting hungry and he's killing people, and they're coming back as vampires. And he has repopulated David Koresh's compound with the vampires. So the law shows up, and it's just crazy, and I can't wait for the next issue.
This book is one of my favorite books.
It's so much fun, guys. I mean, it's vampires kind of the way they should be written. And to start off this new volume, the grandpa that's been up in the attic the whole time, he just goes crazy and lights the house on fire so that they have to be on the run again because he doesn't like living as a normal vampire. But he's gone. He flew off into the sun. I mean, we don't know that he's dead, but he flew off into the sun, into the fire, and caught on fire and caught the house on fire so that they would have to leave. I mean, it's insanity.
Old people fucking things up for everybody.
Old redneck vampires fucking things up for everybody. And so the last issue left with a pretty decent cliffhanger because they're pretty well fucked. This family is pretty well fucked right at the moment because they're surrounded, they're being contained. The law was there. The new vampires killed the law. And they're pretty well fucked, but it goes back and it just shows a sea of dead vampires, and one of their brothers is out there with a stake. So, yeah. So, it's pretty crazy. I can't wait to see how it plays itself out.
You and me both. Well, all right, guys. Well, my book on the vine for this next week is a book from Boom Studios. It's called Abbot, and it's actually the second issue coming out. This book is the story of, it's set in the 70s. She's an investigative reporter in Detroit looking into the cases that the cops have either just decided not to, or that the cold cases that couldn't do anything.
Who's an investigative reporter?
That is a profession where an individual
No, she. You said she.
Huh?
You said she. Who?
Abbot.
Abbott. Oh, gotcha. The title of the
Do you
book.
know how fucking comics work, Jerry?
I do, but I was just trying to figure out who you were talking about because you said the title, but you didn't say a name after that. So I didn't know what Abbott was. I knew that Abbott was the title of the comic. I just didn't know that was the name of the main character. You didn't explain that beforehand.
I'm just going to keep looking at you.
Okay, that's fine.
I love you.
Oh, that's okay. No, wait, whoa.
Okay.
Whoa.
Anyway.
I need an adult.
Yes, Abbott #2 comes out next week from Boom Studios. It's written by Saladin Ahmed, who is a fantasy writer for a long time. A very good fantasy writer. You should check out some of his novels. He's also the same guy writing the Black Bolt series for Marvel right now. It's been really, really good. The art's done by Sammy Cavila. I don't know how to pronounce that, but I'm sorry if I hurt your name. But Sean?
If you have any issue with us mispronouncing your name, come on, feel free to come on this podcast and fight us about it.
She is the artist from another book called Beautiful Canvas, and I haven't read that story, but I looked up some of the artwork from it, and it's phenomenal. Yeah, so Abbott is a character who is the main character. She is a black woman who is an investigative reporter that looks into crimes that have been either unsolved or forgotten by the Detroit Police Department.
Thank you for clearing that up for me.
I'm going to punch you so hard. Anyway, that's my book of the fucking week.
I have one thing to add. If your name is Brian Stewart and you have not read Crossed, what are you doing with your life?
Ooh, shots fired.
Well, guys,
I thought I was the one bringing the salt to this episode.
Well, we got anything to throw out there? Any last thoughts? So no.
No.
All right, guys. Well, if we don't have anything else, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. We again would like to welcome Jerry as
You would?
as the guest, as the guest for this one and only show.
Listen, hold on just a second. We were supposed to shit all over you at the end of this episode. What happened to that?
Nature
happened.
We took
happened to that, Jerry?
Life took its natural course, and we shit on Jerry.
No, we welcome to the show, buddy. We're really glad you're here. If you like what you've heard, come check us out on Twitter and Instagram. We're super busy over there posting everything from news to the books that we're reading to general thoughts on the comic industry to general thoughts on being fans. We're really active, and we would like you to be active on those things with us. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, any wants, wishes, or wonders, drop us a line over at our email. It's southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to know what you think, how we're doing. Interact with us. We really appreciate it. Also, go on iTunes, go on Libsyn, go on SoundCloud, go on all these places that you can find our podcast. Rate and review us. It not only lets us know what you think about the show, it also lets other people know the kind of quality content, or if we're turning out quality content, or if now that Jerry's on the show, it's just going to fucking suck.
Why do I bring out the worst in everyone?
We love you, Jerry.
You guys have any final thoughts? Any last minute?
No.
Go love some comics, guys. We'll see you next week.
That's so good right till the end.
So
And then it just
nice.
went.